Right now, somewhere in your pocket, a small glass rectangle is waiting. You already know you shouldn't check it. You told yourself 5 minutes ago you wouldn't. And yet here you are, thumb twitching, eyes drifting toward it again. You assume this is a modern problem, a design flaw of the digital age. But the real answer is far stranger. The urge pulling your hand toward that screen is not new technology hijacking your brain. It is 300,000 years old, and it was built for something else entirely. Your ancestors did not have phones. They had something more dangerous to ignore: uncertainty. Picture a small band of early humans on the savannah, maybe 40 people total. That was the world. No cities, no strangers passing on a street, no crowds. Just the same 40 faces, day after day, for an entire lifetime. In that world, information was survival. Did the group find water today? Is someone angry at you? Did your status just change? These weren't idle curiosities. They were life or death signals, and your brain evolved a very specific system to chase them. That system runs on a chemical you already know: dopamine. Here's the part most people get wrong. Dopamine isn't the reward. It's the anticipation of one. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered this almost by accident while recording the brains of monkeys expecting a food reward. He found that dopamine neurons didn't fire loudest when the food arrived. They fired loudest in the moment right before, in the gap of not knowing whether the reward would come at all. That gap is the whole trick. Your brain isn't built to reward you for certainty. It's built to reward you for checking. Now stretch that mechanism across 100,000 generations. Every time an ancient human checked the horizon for predators, checked a companion's face for anger, checked the tree line for movement, that same anticipation circuit fired. Sometimes the checking paid off. Sometimes it didn't. But the brain didn't learn ignore this. It learned check again. This is where a very different kind of scientist enters the story: B.F. Skinner. In the 1950s, Skinner ran an experiment with pigeons and a lever. Press the lever, get a food pellet. Simple enough. But then he changed the rules. Instead of a pellet every single time, the pellet came randomly. Sometimes after one press. Sometimes after 20. What happened next surprised even Skinner. The pigeons didn't peck less. They pecked more. Obsessively. Constantly. A predictable reward produced calm, steady behavior. An unpredictable one produced compulsion. He called it a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, and it remains one of the most powerful behavioral patterns ever documented. Not knowing when the reward is coming is precisely what makes you unable to stop looking for it. Does that sound familiar yet? Every time you unlock your phone, you are a pigeon at the lever. Sometimes there's a message that matters. Sometimes there's nothing. You cannot predict which. So your ancient anticipation circuit, the one built to scan a savanna for threats and opportunities, fires every single time, whether or not anything is actually there. But dopamine and unpredictability only explain half the pull. The other half is older and arguably stranger. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent decades studying primate social groups, and he found something unexpected. Among monkeys and apes, grooming, physically picking through each other's fur, wasn't just about hygiene. It was social currency. It told each animal exactly where they stood, who was an ally, who was slipping in status, who might turn on them. Dunbar proposed that human language itself evolved as a kind of vocal grooming, a way to maintain far larger social networks than physical touch alone could manage. And he calculated a number, now famous, suggesting the human brain can comfortably track relationships with around 150 people. Gossip, in his framing, isn't a character flaw. It's ancient social maintenance. Knowing who did what to whom kept you safe inside the group, and being cut off from that information was, quite literally, dangerous. Now consider what a notification actually is. A red dot on an app is not just an alert. It is your brain's oldest question, wrapped in modern packaging. Has something changed in my social world? Am I still safe? Still included? Still known? You are not weak for wanting to check. You are running software that kept small bands of humans alive for 250,000 years. Software that has not had time to catch up to a world of infinite strangers, Infinite updates, infinite maybe. Here is the twist almost no one talks about. Your ancestor system had a built-in limit. There were only 40 people to think about, only one horizon to scan. The uncertainty eventually resolved one way or another, and the checking stopped. Your phone removed the limit but kept the wiring exactly the same. There is always one more scroll, one more possible update, one more gap of not knowing to chase. The savannah never ran out of information this fast. Yours never runs out at all. There's a reason this pull feels physical, almost like a small itch behind your sternum. Your body isn't speaking metaphorically. When dopamine anticipation fires, it recruits attention and motor planning together. Your hand doesn't wait for permission from your conscious mind. It moves toward the phone before you've even decided to check it. That's not carelessness. That's a system built to act fast on ambiguous signals, because on the savannah, hesitation could cost you the difference between noticing a predator and becoming its meal. Think about how strange this would look to someone from 10,000 years ago. Imagine explaining to an early human that you carry a device capable of reaching every person you have ever known, and instead of feeling calm, you feel compelled to check it every few minutes just in case something changed. They wouldn't understand the compulsion as a flaw. They would recognize it instantly. It's the same feeling they had scanning the trillion at dusk. The stakes just look different now. Consider, too, what happens when you try to resist. You put the phone face down. You tell yourself you'll wait an hour. And within minutes, something curious happens in your mind. A kind of low hum of unfinished business. Psychologists call this an open loop, an unresolved question your brain refuses to fully let go of. Uncertainty doesn't just create desire. It creates discomfort until it's resolved, and checking is the fastest, cheapest way to resolve it, even if the resolution is just an empty notification screen. This is exactly why willpower alone rarely works against it. You are not fighting a bad habit with a simple on-off switch. You are fighting a survival circuit that has had 299,000 years of practice keeping humans alive by refusing to ignore uncertainty. Telling yourself to simply stop checking is like telling your lungs to simply stop needing air for a while. The urge doesn't disappear. It just gets louder the more it's denied. So what do you do with a brain built for scarcity, living inside a world of infinite input? Researchers studying digital behavior have started borrowing directly from Skinner's original findings. Predictable, scheduled checking, say 3 set times a day, weakens the compulsive pull because it removes the variable ratio that made the pigeons peck without stopping. Certainty calms the very circuit that uncertainty inflames. It sounds almost too simple, but your brain isn't asking for less connection. It's asking for less unpredictability. It wants to know the check is coming, not to be surprised into wanting it every 90 seconds. Small experiments back this up. People who move notifications to a single batch, delivered a few times a day instead of the moment they arrive, report the pull fading within a couple of weeks. Not because they stopped caring about their messages, because the ancient part of their brain finally learned the schedule, the same way it once learned when the group returned from a hunt or when the sun predictably set. Ancient brains are remarkably good at adjusting to rhythm. What they struggle with is randomness with no edges. There's a broader lesson hiding in all of this, one that reaches beyond phones entirely. Nearly every modern compulsion you've ever judged yourself for, refreshing an inbox, rewatching a show, replaying a conversation in your head, traces back to the same unfinished mechanism. A brain built for a world of scarce, meaningful information, dropped into a world that manufactures unpredictability by design. The mismatch isn't a personal failing. It's an environmental one. There's something oddly comforting in all of this. The urge you've been calling a bad habit, a lack of discipline, a personal failing, is actually one of the oldest and most successful survival tools your species ever built. Kept your ancestors alert to danger. It kept them bonded to their group. Kept them alive. It also explains why certain moments feel almost unbearable without a phone in hand. Standing alone in a line. Sitting in a waiting room. A quiet pause in conversation. These are exactly the situations your ancient brain once used for scanning, for checking the environment, for updating its sense of where it stood in the group and the world. Silence and stillness were never neutral to your ancestors. They were an invitation to gather information. So when modern life hands you a still, silent moment, some old circuit still expects you to fill it by looking around, and your phone has simply become the fastest possible place to look. There's also a reason this system latched onto phones specifically, faster than it latched onto television or newspapers before them. Those older technologies delivered information on a fixed schedule. The evening news came once a day. The morning paper came once a day. Fixed schedules, as Skinner's pigeons demonstrated, produce steady, predictable behavior, not compulsive checking. A phone broke that fixed schedule completely. It made every moment a potential moment of new information, arriving at unpredictable times, from an unpredictable number of people, about an unpredictable range of topics. It didn't just tap into your ancient checking circuit. It removed every boundary that circuit had ever known. Understanding this doesn't mean the pull disappears the next time you pick up your phone. But it does change what that pull means. It's not proof that something is broken in you. It's proof that something ancient in you is still working exactly as designed, just aimed at a target it was never built to face. It just never got the memo that the savannah is gone. So tonight, when your hand drifts toward the screen for the 10th time in an hour, you might notice something different happening in your head. Not weakness, not addiction exactly. 250,000 years of instinct, still scanning the horizon, still checking the group, still asking the same ancient question it always has. It's not the glass rectangle pulling you in. It's the very thing that once kept you alive.